She loved me in silence until the day I almost lost her. We met at university, not in a romantic way, not in a movie-like moment. Just two students sitting in the same lecture hall, both tired, both pretending to understand what the lecturer was saying. She sat 2 rows behind me. At first, she was just a familiar face, someone I nodded to, someone I borrowed a pen from once, someone who asked for notes when she missed a class. Nothing special. Or at least that's what I told myself. Over time, we started walking together after lectures, talking about assignments, complaining about deadlines, laughing about how broke we were, university things. Slowly, without me noticing, she became part of my routine. She was always there. When I failed a test, she encouraged me. When I doubted myself, she reminded me why I started. When I talked about my dreams, she listened like they mattered. And I talked a lot. I talked about my life. I talked about my struggles. I even talked about other girls I liked. She listened, quietly. She never interrupted, never judged, never made it about herself. I thought that meant she didn't care that deeply. I was wrong. University life moved fast. New friends, new environments, new distractions. I started getting busy, or at least I convinced myself I was. I replied to her messages late. Sometimes I forgot to reply at all. I canceled study plans because something came up. And every time, she said the same thing. "It's okay, I understand." She always understood. But understanding doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. I didn't notice when she stopped texting first. I didn't notice when her laughs became quieter. I didn't notice when she stopped waiting for me after lectures. I thought she was just changing, that university does that to people. The truth was harder. She was learning how to live without me. There was a day that changed everything. I saw her sitting with someone else. Not just sitting, but smiling in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. Not the polite smile she gave everyone. A real one. Something inside me tightened. That night, I couldn't sleep. For the first time, I asked myself a question I had avoided for years. What exactly is she to me? And I didn't like the answer. Because I realized she wasn't just a friend. She was the person who had been choosing me every day, silently. Before we continue, if stories like this feel real to you, subscribe to HeartVoice Stories. This channel is for stories that sound like your own life. A few weeks later, I heard she was transferring to another university. Different city, different life. I laughed when I heard it, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know how to react. I told myself it didn't matter, but my chest said otherwise. The day before she left, she asked if we could talk. No long messages, no explanations, just, "Can we talk?" We sat on a bench we had passed 100 times before. She spoke calmly, no tears, no drama. She told me she had loved me quietly from the first year, that she stayed silent because she didn't want to pressure me, that she hoped one day I would see her the way she saw me. She said loving someone in silence feels noble at first, until it starts destroying you. She said leaving was the only way to save herself. I couldn't speak, because every memory suddenly made sense. The patience, the understanding, the silence. She wasn't weak. She was brave, for loving without demanding. I didn't almost lose her that day. I had been losing her slowly, every time I chose comfort over attention. When she stood up to leave, I wanted to stop her. But some chances don't come back, not because you didn't love, but because you realized too late. University taught me many things, but the hardest lesson was this. Some people won't fight for your attention. They'll love you quietly until silence is all they have left. After she left, university didn't feel the same. The lecture halls were still full. The lecturers were still strict. Deadlines still chased us. But something was missing. I kept expecting to see her walking beside me after class. I kept checking my phone out of habit, forgetting that no message was coming anymore. The silence she left behind was louder than any argument we never had. That's when regret started visiting me. Not all at once, slowly, cruelly. I regretted every late reply, every "I'll text you later," every time I chose convenience over care. I remembered moments that seemed small back then, moments I didn't respect, like the time she waited for me after a long lecture, only for me to tell her I had changed my plans. She smiled and said it was fine. I never asked if it really was. Like the night she asked how my day was, and I answered carelessly, without asking about hers. Like the many times she made space for me in her life, while I never made space for her in mine. University life teaches you theories, formulas, systems, but it doesn't teach you how to handle someone who loves you quietly. Weeks passed. I started noticing her absence in the smallest things. When I was stuck on an assignment, she wasn't there. When I wanted to share a small victory, she wasn't there. When I felt lonely in a crowd, she wasn't there. And that's when regret deepened, because I realized something painful. She was my safe place, and I treated her like an option. I tried to reach out, at first just casually, a message asking how she was, then another, longer one. She replied politely, kindly, but not the way she used to. Her words were warm but distant, respectful but guarded, like someone who had already closed a door, not angrily, but carefully. That hurt more than silence, because it meant she had healed enough to keep her distance. I replayed everything in my head over and over. What if I had paid more attention? What if I had spoken sooner? What if I had asked the right question at the right time? But regret doesn't answer questions. It just reminds you it's too late. One evening, sitting alone in my room, I finally admitted the truth to myself. I didn't ignore her because I didn't feel something. I ignored her because I was afraid to feel something deeply, and she paid the price for my fear. Before I continue, if you've ever lost someone because you realized their value too late, subscribe to HeartVoice Stories. These stories exist because real people live them. I saw her once more months later, just briefly. She looked different, not physically, but emotionally, more grounded, more sure of herself, like someone who had chosen peace over waiting. We talked politely about life, about studies, about nothing important, and that was the hardest part, because she used to be someone important. When we said goodbye, she smiled, genuinely. I smiled back, pretending I was okay, but inside, regret tightened its grip. Because I knew I wasn't sad because she left. I was sad because I never became the person she needed when she needed me. Some regrets don't scream, they whisper. They show up when you're alone, when life slows down, when you finally have time to care, but no one left to receive it. University ended. Life moved on, but that lesson stayed. Now, whenever someone listens to me attentively, whenever someone shows up without asking for anything, whenever someone loves quietly, I get scared. Not because of them, but because of who I used to be. Because I know what it feels like to lose someone who never demanded much except to be seen. And the worst regret of all? Knowing that if I had loved her just a little louder, she might still be here. Time didn't heal this one. People like to say it does, but they lie. Time doesn't heal everything. Sometimes it just teaches you how to live with the damage. After university ended, life moved forward the way it always does. New routines, new responsibilities, new people who knew nothing about her. And that was the problem. No one knew what she had been to me because I never let her be anything more than just a friend. Years passed. I stopped checking my phone for her name, not because I stopped wanting to see it, but because I trained myself not to expect it. Hope is exhausting when it keeps disappointing you. Every now and then, something small would bring her back. A bench that looked like the one we used to sit on. A random sentence someone said that sounded like her. A quiet moment where I wished someone would listen the way she used to. That's when regret returned, not loudly, but faithfully. It didn't accuse me, it didn't shout, it just reminded me. I tried dating other people, I tried convincing myself I had moved on, but something was always missing. Not excitement, not attraction, understanding. No one knew me the way she did, because she learned me patiently, silently, without demanding proof of love. One day, out of curiosity more than courage, I searched her name online. I found a photo. She was smiling, the kind of smile that doesn't ask for permission, standing next to someone else, not posing, not trying, just at peace. That was the moment I understood something final. She didn't leave to teach me a lesson. She left to save herself. And she succeeded. I wanted to feel happy for her. I really did. But all I felt was the weight of knowing I was part of a chapter she had closed completely. Not angrily, not bitterly, completely. There was no dramatic goodbye, no last message explaining everything, just distance, the kind that doesn't invite return. And that hurt more than hatred ever could. Because hatred means you still matter. Silence means you've been placed in the past. I sometimes imagine an alternate version of my life, one where I noticed earlier, one where I spoke up, one where I chose courage instead of comfort. But imagination is a cruel place, because it shows you everything you could have been without giving you a second chance. Now, when someone loves me quietly, I don't miss it anymore. Not because I've grown, but because that kind of love doesn't come twice. It comes once, patiently, gently, and leaves when it's tired of being invisible. I didn't almost lose her. I lost her the day I decided she would always be there. And some losses don't come with lessons. They just come with silence and the rest of your life to remember it.